Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Card Dad. This is going to be a fun one. I actually am excited that I got a hold of you, Ty. This is Ty Wilson. And because I don't see you doing a lot of interviews, so I'm excited that I was able to talk to you. I've never actually met you in person, or I don't think that we've ever done like a live stream or anything together. Yeah. So this is it. I'm glad that you're here. Thanks for joining.
I'm excited, man. I've been watching some of your recent stuff, and I think we were chatting. I was like, man, you're killing it with your content, and it just made sense for us to chat. So I appreciate you having me on.
I just dink and dunk. It's like the quarterback that's just always kind of checking down. I just keep checking down on 3-yard passes, and eventually I get in the end zone.
you score. Yeah, right. Touchdowns pile up that way. You start hitting singles like you do, man. You have a lot of runs by the end.
All right. Well, I'm going to come right at you because these are candid conversations. So I have to ask, because I'm thinking back, this will be my 5th national in a row coming up in July. Wow. Since kind of pandemic times. And I had not gone to one before the pandemic. It was all kind of new to me, but I have never seen you there. And I've got to believe that a lot of your show, a lot of your people that you're chasing cardboard people that want to see you there. Are you going to be there in July?
Yes, we will be. As a team, we will be there. We will have our entire team at the national. We'll be set up at the awesome card shop booth in the center of the main floor. Nice. So I don't want to spoil too much. We've been thinking about this for about a year. We've been coming up with something pretty special for the national. So we're going to have a spot there. Yeah.
So now correct me if I'm wrong, but you haven't done a show around the national before.
Correct. Yeah. I've been to 3 nationals personally, but we've never filmed there or done anything. So this will be the first time for us.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm going to just jump into the card content part of this conversation because you're somebody, I was talking to you about this before we went on. Yeah. It's kind of a unique person to speak to because you've done a variety of different content. You're somebody that got onto YouTube a long time ago, really, if we're looking at kind of sports card YouTube, and you've tried different things. And I just want to kind of hear the evolution and where you started, and now you're here with Chasing Cardboard. And you also have, I know you have 1 or maybe 2 other channels, correct me if I'm wrong, that are reselling channels around eBay and like eBay reseller. So you've got a whole litany of different things going on. But did it start with Breaker Culture? Was that the first channel on YouTube?
Yeah, Breaker Culture was the first channel on YouTube. I was doing blog stuff, WordPress. You probably can relate to this, like putting out just written articles a couple years before I got on YouTube. I was doing podcasts through Breaker Culture. I was selling on eBay early 2000s, went to WordPress, started putting out a blog, putting together like stat sheets and like, here's the best products to open. Originally, Breaker Culture actually started as a review site for breakers. I saw like this, there's no transparency. Let's put something together for them. And that got out of hand because people were reviewing and I couldn't monitor it. And so it evolved into putting out data.
Oh, okay. So and I missed that. So that was kind of like a Yelp for breakers or people that are looking at like trying to get breaker reviews.
Yeah, that was in 14 or 15. So gosh, almost a decade ago now. Yeah. So that was early on in the breaking kind of life cycle. So
okay.
As you can imagine, that got a little hairy with people getting bad reviews. And then it's like, I'm getting emailed from the breakers and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? I want out of this. I'm not doing this.
Yeah. And trying to figure out how to moderate that. It had to be really difficult because you probably have some reviews that are legit, some that aren't. Some breakers they probably really like it if they're doing good work and they're getting reviews and people are finding them. And there's, like you said, there's probably others that are like, what the hell? Like, this is just somebody that doesn't like me or whatever. So yeah, that does sound like a mess.
Yeah. So the name Breaker Culture was there's this culture around breaking and I'm providing transparency. So it's funny, even that now still is stuck on eBay with the Breaker Culture username. And I get texts all the time or messages. Hey, when are you actually breaking? And it's like, I don't do breaks. It's just the name I started 15. So I should have changed it a long time ago.
Now, okay, so I'm just trying to think through this. You were selling in the early 2000s, and then had you been selling, kind of buying and selling on eBay as a side hustle all the way through this? And was the thought behind that channel, okay, I can get my name out here and then I can redirect people. Like I run the site, but I also buy, sell on eBay if you have a collection or something. Was that all a part of what you were doing back then as well?
Yeah, I don't think I had the foresight to really think about that. It was more just, I had maybe another couple eBay accounts, one with my wife, one with a buddy of mine. We were just doing all kinds of things. And at a certain point, the Breaker Culture name took off a little bit within the hobby. And so I thought, let's brand the eBay account that way. But yeah, I had been selling, really since eBay began, my grade school, high school collection kind of through high school and college. So it just I never stopped doing it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, did you go from Breaker Culture to Bench Clear, or was there something in between Breaker Culture and Bench Clear Media?
No, that was it. Yeah. So it was Breaker Culture. I was doing the podcast, and then I met Jeff Hofer, who you may know. He works at Fanatics now, but previously.
Is that the Pack Ripper?
That's Pack Geek is his
Pack
name.
Geek. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
I remember him. Yep.
Great guy and marketing guru, went to Panini and then now works over at Fanatics doing a bunch of cool stuff. He introduced me to Mike Moynihan, and Mike and I, we essentially started Bench Clear together with Jeff, and then Jeff kind of went his own way, and we started this putting out content together. And Mike's obviously a trusted voice in the hobby, and he's just a great guy. So that's how we built our relationship. And then eventually through that, I met Matt Coleman because he wanted to put his show, his kind of hobby oriented show on the Bench Clear network. And so we gave him a shot to do that. He put a couple episodes out, and in the middle of that, I realized how talented he was, for one. And then he said, "Hey, Ty, I got this idea. We should go on the road together, and let's go take American Pickers style and go take it to the hobby." Yeah, we didn't have a name yet, but we decided to go film some pilot episodes of that. Almost 4 years ago.
Okay.
And that was really him and I just brainstorming.
Was 4 years old, or that's when it started. You guys started brainstorming it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Jason Cardboard is almost 4 years old. We put the pilot episode together like 3 years and 10 months ago.
Wow. I didn't realize that. For some reason, I was thinking it was like 2 years. Man, time flies. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay. So he talked you into doing that. Now, were you already at that point when you were doing Breaker Culture, or not Breaker Culture, but Bench Clear? So many different names here that all kind of all wrapped together.
You're confusing me, and I did it all.
You're like, wait, was I on that channel?
Yeah, right.
So, Bench Clear, were you already doing what you were doing kind of before, buying collections and kind of doing the eBay stuff? You were already heavy into it during that time? Because I think I remember watching Bench Clear when the pandemic hit, prices went crazy and all that. You were in there buying, selling, and kind of, because there was a lot of flipping. There was a lot of money to be made there. That was actually, I'm not a very good flipper, but I was a great flipper in 2020 and 2021, like what everybody was, I haven't been since I'm not as much of a great flipper, but I have to believe for you, especially if you already had like inventory leading into that boom, then that was probably like a good launch point to kind of get things rolling.
It was, man. I mean, just like anybody that was grinding it out and early 2000s, early 2010s, it's like you were just trying to do whatever you could to get a few pennies out of the flip game. Yeah, when the pandemic hit, it was like, oh my goodness gracious. And I had a good distributor relationship at the time too, so it was kind of like I was getting some wax in and I was selling it different ways. There was a lot of good opportunities that I had just because I'd been hustling for so many years before that. So pandemic, it helped for sure.
Okay, so Matt talks you into going on the road, and how did you? So I mean, you have a family too. I think that, I thought that I'm the sports card dad with 4 kids. I don't know if I know anybody in the hobby that has more kids than me. And I think that you have 5.
I have 7.
7. All right. Well, there you go. You're almost double how many I have. So how did you decide, okay, I'm going to go on the road? And you also had to make a decision to invest in this channel because, obviously like it's got to be edited a certain way. It's got to be done. It looks like a TV production. So was that a huge decision for you to make with your family, or was that kind of more of like your family was like, yeah, this is a perfect kind of evolution of what you've been doing. It makes sense. And I'm curious to kind of hear that origin story.
Yeah, it's tough, because you can relate to this. I mean, in the Breaker Culture podcast and the Bench Clear world, like I had been seeing what the economics looked for on the content side. And it wasn't pretty, right? I mean, you put a lot of content out, and like it's not like YouTube pays you a bunch of money. Like if you really crush it, you might make a few grand a month. So I knew like from a monetary side, like it wasn't going to be some sort of life-changing event, but I was also side hustling. So there was this point where it's like, I'm doing this on the side, I'm managing all this. And then this idea came up. Matt and I decided from the very beginning, let's produce this show with the intent of getting on a TV network.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you that next.
Yeah.
Okay.
We put it together because Matt is incredibly talented. As you know, he just, everything, the production and the editing is just perfect. He's been doing it for 25 years. And he said, I think we can get something on a network. And so we put together one pilot episode, which took us like 8 weeks. and it took us $20,000 in like our own money, and I had to buy this collection. We had to pay for all this stuff out of our pocket. And then we pitched it to networks. It took, 4, 5, 6 weeks of just cold calling and emailing. And finally I got A&E, I got History Channel. I got them to take a call with us, and we showed them the first pilot episode, and they loved it. But they came back to us and they basically said the sports card niche is too small. Like, it's just not big enough for broadcast.
Okay.
So the pushback they gave us was, keep doing what you're doing, but put it on YouTube and prove to us that the niche is bigger than we think, and come back to us after you put 10, 20 episodes out. And so we put together 2 more episodes over the next couple of months, and then we released the first 3 on YouTube. And we realized pretty quickly that it was going to be a grind, but the hobby received it really well.
Yeah.
And so we kept, all the way up until really like episode 20, we kept thinking, let's do this so that we can just go sell it to network. But it just got to a point where every conversation we'd have was, yeah, we might be interested, but we're going to have to take this creative freedom away here. We're going to have to maybe juggle this around, and we would lose really the authenticity of what we were trying to do. Matt walks in with the camera. We might have an extra camera guy, but the networks were saying, if we do this, we're going to bring in 6 camera guys, a lighting guy, a makeup artist. And it's like, you do that to Skip over there in Indianapolis, there is no authenticity, right? It is not what we're intending it to be. So we just kept pursuing YouTube. And
would they drive kind of the script and stuff at that point? So
they would want to have all these script writers, and
you'd be an actor on the show, essentially.
I'd be expendable. They would probably find someone a lot better than me. I can promise you that. So that, it became just something we weren't really excited about. So we stuck it out with YouTube.
Okay. And so you said, you kind of nailed it. It's definitely popular within our hobby space, which is what you were going for. Oh, one question I wanted to ask you on that too. Did they ever say like, hey, what if you covered like collectibles as a whole? Like if sports cards is too small, did they say like, well, what about comic books, or what about action figures or whatever? Did they try to throw that at you, or was that not, part of this?
They did. Yeah. We had those conversations, and I think the solution would have been just finding more co-hosts to jump in and do that. We've actually kind of dabbled in that a little bit. We had a meeting at one point. We had a meeting with Magnolia, which is Chip and Joanne Gaines.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I was trying to, I'm like, I know that.
Yeah.
That name. That's cool.
This was right after they got acquired by HBO. And so we went down there and we filmed an episode of Magnolia, but it was really in conjunction with us talking to them about potentially finding a way to get Chasing Cardboard over there. And the reason why they were even entertaining the conversation was because they have 97% women watching their channel. And they're like, maybe we can get, some more guys to watch if we bring something like this over. And we're looking at our demographics and the YouTube metrics, and it's like, we're 97% men. So
yeah.
But it didn't end up working out, but it was just interesting because they were the same way. They're like, maybe you can do some other sort of things outside of sports cards. And it's not who we are, but
it's a wholesome show. So I could see how it would translate over to that network, but you're right. It is a pretty big, it's like opposites of what they're doing as far as the demographics go. So that makes sense.
For sure.
Okay. So you went the YouTube route, and I pay attention, obviously, like my channel is sponsored. So I always pay attention to kind of what people are doing. And I noticed you have some good hobby companies that you're working with, and you've got the YouTube rev that comes through. So, and it can't be inexpensive to produce these episodes. How have you, I guess you're almost 4 years into it. Are you happy with the progression of it? Just from where you've come from and where you are now, what's been your overall thought as far as the money piece of it? And then I guess the other question is with the content, was the content more of a focus around just driving business to driving business to the actual buy sell business? Because it's kind of, it's separate things. It makes me think about like when Jeff Wilson talks about, well, the content is really just more to move people to get them to Cards HQ, or it's to get them to Market Movers, or it's to get them to something else. Are you looking for, I guess, does the content kind of have its own deal going on, or is it more of a sales funnel almost, to get more collections to buy and that?
Yeah, those are great questions. So early on, I was doing this as a side hustle. So all the way up until maybe episode 10, it was just, let's take time off. I was in corporate sales for 15 years. And at about episode 10, we realized that I can't keep just taking PTO. Not only does it take a lot of time, but the type of collections I'm acquiring require so much work to resell. So early on, it was just like, let's go put this together, put it on a network. Maybe we'll get some sponsors. And we had some real, like you said, we had some really good early sponsors. I mean, SGC came alongside us. Peter over there was great. He said, look, I love what you're doing. I'll put some money in for you. eBay came along early on. We had some card shops like Marcel, awesome card shop, and Chris at Top Shelf. All of those people just invested in us. And so it gave us the runway to make it work. But at episode 10 or so, I just had to make a decision. How much do I love this? And I just had a conversation with my wife, and my wife, who's amazing, she just said, this is what you love to do. Go make it work. And so at that point, I realized the reselling piece needs to take on a life of its own. And so, yeah, we have a separate Chasing Cardboard where, you make your X amount of dollars through YouTube and you got sponsors, and then everything else gets funneled through the reselling business, which I run 100%. My kids help me do that. And we would just funnel a lot of cards through eBay and whatnot and all that stuff direct from episodes. So it ended up, like you said, it ended up becoming this big funnel for inventory for the reselling business. But early on, it wasn't intended to be that way. Just kind of, we had to adjust and make that happen.
Now, do you have any regrets, making that decision looking back, or do you just look at it as like, hey, this is what I was meant to do and it's been awesome?
I think the one regret I have is I wish I would have hired people early on. I've hired James, who works over at the Awesome Card Shop now with Marcel. He worked with me in Idaho and he accelerated things. And I just hired a guy locally again. When I've hired people, things have just worked better. I was too hesitant to give things up early on. So in hindsight, I wish, and even for Matt, I wish he would have hired people early on to help with it. He still does this as a side hustle.
Okay.
Matt, who, him and I are co-owners of the show and the brand. He's a film producer at his church, full time.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So in hindsight, we would have put out, because we put out content every 2 weeks. We put out a full episode every 2 weeks, but that requires a couple days of filming. It requires 3 days of editing. It requires about $5,000 on average to get it done, to go travel and get it done.
Wow. Yeah. That's
in hindsight, we would have done things better to make it like economical.
Now, and I haven't looked at the eBay for just overall reselling, but do you also get opportunities, I guess, where you're talking to somebody and they're like, hey, I also have this stuff if you want to buy this stuff, to where, yes, you're going in, you're making a show about cards, but then you might actually get a great deal on some other things that maybe you can resell. Cause I know you've got that other YouTube where you're talking about sports cards, but you're talking about reselling as a whole, which to me makes a lot of sense because that's just a larger, it's not as niche as sports cards. So that gives you kind of a larger space to go play in, and you're putting together high production videos. So do you get deals on, I guess, other stuff, as well to sell?
I do. We get a lot of leads on comic books. We get a lot of leads on figurines now. Most of the time I just say no to it because I've learned, and the Ty Wilson channel really exists because we put some of that stuff out in Chasing Cardboard early on. And the YouTube world nowadays, YouTube is so good at figuring out the algorithm and figuring out who your viewer is. The second you start doing like tangent stuff, it actually waters down your ability to grow your channel. So we just shifted that over to the personal channel, and that's where I talk about this stuff. But like I learned early on, like if I take on figurines or comic books, all they do is sit on a shelf because I don't understand that world and I don't have the time to understand it the way I want. So I say no to it.
Yeah.
So you want some of that stuff, Dustin, you tell me.
Yeah. That's why I was bringing it up. If you run into figurines, I love figurines. No.
Okay. All right.
Going back to Mike Baseball Collector, because I remember kind of early on, I thought that, and I was just kind of assuming this, but I thought that maybe he was like an investor in the show, or because I know he's on the show. I didn't know if that was just because you guys are buddies, or if maybe he was helping to kind of like, be a partner in that venture. And so I was just curious if he was or is.
Yeah, he's not a partner in the show, but he's just a good friend. And early on, he was on early on a lot more. He's kind of on sporadically now. A lot of things are shifting in his life. He's building out his ranch, and it just hasn't worked out. And so I think in some upcoming episodes you'll see Mike again, but it ebbs and flows, right? If we're not paying him a bunch of money, some of these co-hosts that come on, it's like we're asking them for a favor. We just have to let it work for their schedule. So Mike's just a great dude. I hope we can get him on more.
for somebody that might be watching this and just trying to figure out, and maybe that person is me, who knows, should I go next level as far as production and all that sort of thing? Because I look at yourself, I look at a Jeff Wilson, and I look at sub numbers and view counts, and it's not everything, but it certainly doesn't hurt to have higher production type stuff. But just as far as it goes with your business in particular, do you really feel like, man, we put out this show and it's opened up this whole world of collections that we otherwise would just not have seen if we did not have Chasing Cardboard, to whereas you'd have to go out and you'd have to call, cold call, or, figure out how to find these collections?
Oh, for sure, man. Some of the stuff that we get to see or we get access to is 100% because it's a great production, but we're focused on telling people's stories, like they're real stories. And there's something about that that's unique in the hobby. Yes, I get to talk about reselling. Yes, I get to buy cool cards. And a lot of times the viewers are always like, show us more cards. And it's like, it's not really about the cards. It's more about that collector. That's the point of the show. The cards just happen to be kind of the medium that we get to use to get to them. So because of that, it's opened a lot of doors that, I'm super thankful for. I am.
Yeah, I've told you this, but my favorite episode of Chasing Cardboard is the circus episode with, I think it was Mikey. Is it Mikey?
Yeah.
Mikey, yeah. And the big thing that struck me, of course, is that he talked on the show about him being autistic, and my youngest son is autistic. And so when I saw that, it was inspiring because with my youngest, he's 10, and my wife and I kind of look at each other, and we've got all sorts of hopes and dreams for him. On the one hand, maybe he's going to, do all these amazing things and he's going to wow us and shock us. But there's also a lot of, things that he has to work through. And I look at a guy like Mikey and it's like, damn, he's actually really doing it, and really a smart collector. Like the stuff he was like buying, the stuff that he was selling. I was like, man, he's actually smarter than probably 99% of people that buy cards. He really had it down. Did you know that he was neurodiverse before you got there, or was that something you kind of, learned on site?
No, we did. We knew that, and it actually drew us to him. We wanted to tell his story because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really cool story. And then it sounds like, from what he said, it kind of kickstarted his resale company, or, him buying and selling cards. Have you kept in touch with him to know kind of how he's doing with that? Or does he reach out to you guys still? Because I know that he watches the show and stuff, so I assume he probably stays in touch.
Yeah, we have sporadically kept in touch. I know he's kind of moving and shaking. He's getting older. He's an adult. So yeah, we have, he's texted every so often. I don't know if he's staying in touch with Matt and Mike, but Mike's his role model, rightfully so. It's a perfect role model for the type of cards he collects. But last I heard, I think he's doing well, and I think his business is still growing. So good for him.
Cool. Yeah, that's very cool. So how much of your time and energy is working on actual card content? Because I know that Matt does a lot of like the editing and stuff like that. And is it that you just kind of show up for that, or do you have to come up with a lot of the the stories and that sort of a thing, or is that more kind of other people behind the scenes and then you kind of are like, yes, let's do that, and you kind of show up to do the show? How much of your time is put into content versus actually reselling stuff? The shipping and the buying, selling, reselling, negotiating, all that stuff.
Yeah. So when it comes to the episode itself, I do all the screening. I do most of the screening for the collectors. And we have enough leads now to where we're basically cherry picking the ones that we want to go see. And it's a combination of, are these cards good enough? Is there going to be enough margin for us on a deal potentially? Like, we don't negotiate the deal, but like, let's understand what you're really wanting. And then, is the personality good enough? So we're cherry picking those. And I would say that takes up a couple hours a week, between a couple hours a week and 5-6 hours a week. And then on the road, it's just a lot of prep, making sure I walk in and I'm not completely blindsided by stuff, knowing the area, all that little things that we didn't do early on, but we do now to make sure that we don't look like idiots. But then most of the other time that I have is putting out Ty Wilson content, which my son produces all of that. Jackson, he does a great job. And then reselling. And my wife ships everything. And she's amazing.
Oh, does she really?
Yeah, she does all the shipping. That helps a lot. That frees up like 10 hours a week.
Man, I need to have my wife ship more of my stuff. She really needs to pick it up. No, I'm not doing any sort of scale that you're doing, but yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's cool that it's a family affair. That way, it's not like you're locked up in the basement or something for hours and you don't see anybody, and all that sort of thing.
I think if it wasn't, it would be really hard for me to stay motivated. Like, a lot of my kids are involved. The boys rotate and coming on trips with me for Chasing Cardboard, so they get to kind of be a part of it. Holds me accountable on the road to kind of just make sure I'm focusing on the right things. It's just really good. It's really good to have them involved.
That's awesome. Well, and another thing I did notice too is you've been doing recently on Chasing Cardboard more like different style episodes, I would say. So it's obviously like different collections, but you went and visited our mutual friends over at Pristine Auctions, Jared and those guys. That was a cool episode. I saw that you did, you were with Al and you were at a card show, and that was a little bit different. You were looking at his Waxstat stuff and, talking with dealers and that sort of a thing. Yeah. And so it looks like you're kind of mixing it up now, and maybe I missed it. Have you been doing that all along, kind of slipping those episodes in, or is that something that's a little newer?
It's a little newer, and we're in the process of kind of spinning that out into a little channel called Hobby Startup. Really because we just love telling entrepreneurial stories. Like that's what I gravitate towards. And so we just hadn't done that in the past. And so we've been trying to line those up. And a couple of those worked out because, Pristine was a partner. And so it made sense for us to go out there. They sponsored the show and we wanted to tell their story. Alan's great. We went out and saw Mark at My Card Post, and we have 2 more coming out in the next couple months that are really good. So it's given us an opportunity to do something a little bit different.
From the business standpoint, because I think that you have a good, what's the best way for me to put this? Just the way that your show is structured, I feel like you're a great channel to be able to get maybe sponsorships or different deals that are outside of the hobby, and I've been thinking about this too for my own channel. And so I'm curious if you've entertained calls that are, and again, I don't know what this, company would be, Whole Foods or something. I have no idea. Like some sort of like a brand that you feel good about. That's like, hey, Chipotle is sponsoring this video or something. But you don't see it, in our hobby really very much because it is niche. But we do have, 97% of males are watching the show, and a lot of them have disposable income. A lot of times it's like 35 to 75-year-old males that have disposable income. You would think there might be more sponsorship opportunities for companies maybe outside the hobby where that are trying to reach that demographic. Have you had conversations like that?
We have had some conversations like that. And I mean, there are some really perfect sponsors for us. Where we stay at Marriott's or Airbnbs 100% of the time. Like we rent with Avis, right? We do all of these things that we do on the road where it's like, you're perfect for us. And so we've pitched all of them and we've had conversations, but nothing's really ever taken off because I think they get scared when they see sports cards. But you've probably noticed this too. I mean, so with our world, we're entertaining people. People watch Chasing Cardboard as a collector and as the fringe audience. We get a lot of fringe viewers where it's like my husband collects and I'm watching it because it's a fun show, or my grandpa's watching it with us. That gets us excited, and we get that a lot. But they're watching it to be entertained. The second we try to sell them something, it a switch flips and it doesn't convert very well. But if I go try to sell something on Ty Wilson, like a very direct, I know what I'm doing, this is a very unique audience, I can convert like crazy. It's something crazy about the entertainment space where they're turned off from wanting to buy anything. And so we've been really selective over what we put in front of them because we don't want people to get annoyed with us trying to sell them stuff. So you probably get that a little bit just coming from your world. But we learned that the hard way when we pitched a couple things early on, and then we're like, oh my gosh, this did not convert. So if we do a sponsorship, it's going to be somewhat hobby related because we know for sure they're hobby people.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering, because you said Avis rental or something, if you could almost tie it in product placement, like in the movie, in movies, you'll have they're drinking Coca-Cola, and it's they're not even necessarily saying hey, go out and buy Coca-Cola, but they just happen to be showing Coca-Cola in the movie. I'm wondering now, I don't know how you pitch that necessarily, but you actually do have a TV show to where it could be corporate product placement, but just getting somebody to wrap their head around that and it'd be something that you want to actually, put on the show and that sort of a thing. That'd be kind of tricky. You'd have to probably think on it a lot. I would.
That's a great idea. We haven't really talked about that a lot, but we should explore that for sure.
I'm going to now all of a sudden on my 8-minute videos, you're going to see product placement, and you're going to be wondering I wonder if Zero Sugar Sparkling Ice is sponsoring now. I don't have enough juice that you guys have. You guys have a 30-minute, high production video, but don't count me out. I might be in there with you guys at some point.
I think you can pull that off. I think you could.
All right. So let's talk more big picture as we kind of wrap up the episode. So, we're heading to the National. Honestly, it might be the most attended national, ever this year. And last year's was, and the year before that, we keep on kind of breaking records for participants and money being spent too. If you look at, those quarterly eBay numbers on what people are buying, selling, all that stuff, it's just as high as what we saw, during the pandemic. What are your thoughts, on the overall hobby? Because you'll get different opinions all over the place. For me, it just feels like there's different price points for everybody here. New product is expensive. That's kind of that's a sticking point. But what are you most excited about, as we kind of round out 2025, heading into 2026, just hobby wise? You've been in it for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, big picture hobby wise, I'm pretty excited about the shift that I feel like is happening in the hobby. We sense it when we're recording episodes and we're talking with people on the road, but like I really sense it when I'm at shows. Like I set up this past week in Kansas City, a 500 table show. We've attended a lot of shows recently. I feel like there's a shift happening from like old guard to new guard. Content creators are becoming normal. Voices are becoming normal. The older crowd is kind of just accepting it and or shifting out of the hobby. So I feel like I'm excited about just the transition that's taking place. And I think Fanatics is doing a good job of kind of like feeding that, fueling some of those little pieces of the hobby. Brands like Jeff Wilson's Cards HQ and Ryan at Content, Card Collector 2, and like some I mean, there's some like Trike. Trike is a good one, right? King of Cards. These are all like they're really influencing the hobby in some good ways. I'm excited to see that shift like fully happen. So that's get me pretty stoked.
It'll be really interesting to see. And this is, of course, going to be 20 to 25 years down the road. But if you go back to like when we were kids, if you go back to, that first junk wax era, whether it's like late 80s, early 90s or mid 90s, when you were getting into it, and you look back at kind of what were our options back then and the environment, just comparing the environment to what we have today. And you look at all the young people that are at the national and at card shows and at card shops that are involved. I mean, like you have to assume that they're going to have, again, like that. I joke about like the midlife crisis thing that I had, going back, totally. Like people getting back in. And there's going to be a moment where a lot of these young people are like, damn, I really had a good time when I was 10 and I went to the national, I went to whatever, my local card show with my dad. You have to assume that's probably going to happen again down the road, so it'll be, I think that's going to be fun to see. We'll be old men at that point, but
we're going to be the old guys shifting out of the hobby, right? We're
going to be the ones yelling. I'll be like the sports card granddad. I'll have rebranded and have like the gray hair. I'll have to switch my logo around, but yeah, I'll be whining about something for sure. But yeah,
no doubt. Well, it'll be interesting because I mean, obviously I think there's some things that need to be fixed in the hobby too. So like, hopefully some of those things are fixed. I mean, we're in this graded card to saturation era right now where it's like everything I see now is just graded cards everywhere and one of ones everywhere. So some of those things I think need to be fixed. I'm really curious to see how the next couple of years those things play themselves out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, hey, we'll wrap up. Is there anything that you want to preview for Chasing Cardboard or for the reselling business, or where can they find you? I guess, whether it be social media or on eBay.
Yeah, so just Chasing Cardboard's the main channel. The personal channel is Ty Wilson, where we talk reselling stuff only. We've released 74 episodes, which is crazy to think about, and we have 6 more in the queue. The one that just came out today is getting a lot of. You have to check it out if you haven't checked it out. We filmed in New York City for the first time, and
oh, nice.
It's creating a little bit of contention in the comment section, let's just say. But there's some really good ones that we've tried to kind of bring back the nostalgia of the hobby and the next batch of episodes. So we're trying to get to that kind of mesh in the old school, the old guard. So follow us over at Chasing Cardboard. You'll like it.
Very cool. All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gents. Well, mostly gents. Let's be honest here.
96% of you.
Yeah. 3% beautiful ladies. Thanks for tuning in. Ty, hope I'll definitely, reach out as we get to the national. Hopefully we can grab a drink or something, grab lunch or, whatever. We got to, I want to shake your hand in person.
Sounds good, Dustin. I look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you guys.